Now, Nigeria's Minister of Housing, Babatunde Fashola, says the government is working on a new housing model he says are best suited for the Nigerian populace. According to the minister, these housing models will also be affordable. Joining us to discuss affordable housing models is James Inedu George. He's the head of design at HTL. Thank you, James. He joins us from our Johannesburg studio. Thank you, James, for taking the time out to join us.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
Now, good morning to you too. Now, as you know, many governments, especially here in Nigeria, have been talking for several years now about affordable housing, coming up with schemes that would enable the average Nigerian to be able to afford a typical house. But that has not been the case, or rather, we've not seen that happen. So we know that different models from year to year are drawn up, and this present government has said that a new housing model, new standardization rules will be put together to ensure that new models come out and that the average Nigerian can afford a home. But you appear to have come up with something rather innovative, and that's the farm gauge. You say a kind of mortgage barter system connected to production more than to earnings. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's for what we've been able to calculate. It'd be easier if the government can provide land than to provide houses. If the government can provide land and a way that about $33,000 can be provided in form of materials and things like that for people who leave university, a barter system can be formed between the graduates and the government where farming is the tool for trade. Now, the government takes, because of the nature of farming and the nature of our economy as it is, would have a system where you can actually see exactly what a person earns. Therefore, the government from source can take a certain amount of produce to increase the amount of food excess in the country, and at the same time to help to broker a deal between housing as it is and education and, most importantly, affordable schemes for housing. So what we've done is to look at the situation a little bit differently and ask ourselves, maybe we should build land instead and find a way to provide these lands in small quantities or large quantities, as the case may be, to people around. Now, if that happens, we have a situation where we don't depend again on what technology is saying today. We depend instead on how we can produce. And then we build buildings around said production, which would change the way that we look at architecture, urban planning, cities, and indeed even diversifying our economy, which is, as they say, is in a recession now.
Has this model been done anywhere else on the continent or in the world, or it's new?
It's basically new, but what we do is we develop new technologies and apply them to other schemes, and we try to collate all these technologies together in form of one power scheme that we can follow through to help economies grow. Now, what we've done with Affordacity, which is what we're calling the new cities for our African cities, which we don't expect to grow as they grew before, it's a kind of gentrification that can change the way a city, serve as a catalyst to change the way a city performs. Now, a lot of the technologies have been tried out in our buildings and our schemes around West Africa, but we're putting it together to ask how affordable housing can come together to create a city for the future of Africa based on production, and that can help the economy to change and indeed speed up the economy's performance.
Now, as you know, land issues, especially here in Nigeria, can be quite tricky. I mean, to get a CFO can take months. And now you're talking about the fact that if only the government can just give out land to, and we're talking about thousands, millions of people in this instance, don't you think that could be a big problem? And what makes you so confident that if this is put into operation, it would actually work?
That's the reason why our slogan is to build land, not houses. We want 400 by 400 meters in a city that is already in existence, and then we can build for 300,000 people by not building the affordable housing, but by building land pads on several levels where a little portion is sold out to this graduate or this person who needs an affordable house. Let's call him person X. And then he builds by a model, one of the groups of models we've created, affordable housing over a period of time. So what the main investors and the government are bringing in is a small portion of city land that we can multiply by building pads, which we're calling land, for people to build upon. So the issue of land is a very big issue in affordable housing. There's a McKinsey report that came out in 2014 that said that land had to be made accessible. So we looked at that report and said, why don't we use the skills we have? We're architects, why don't we use the skills we have to create land instead of actually depending on land as a resource that can finish in our cities. So we create land.
Is this an idea that you've sold to investors? I'm just curious, what's been the feedback? Well,
we've set up a couple of meetings, and I'm giving a lecture at University of Pennsylvania in a couple of days, so I have to get back to pursue. But there's been a lot of interest since we had the exhibition, and we're trying to push it forward. It's 2 weeks now. We've had a couple of meetings in some states, and we're trying to push forward what we believe in and what we believe will help change lives in Nigeria and Africa indeed.
Okay, I was also going to ask you if you put this forward to the Nigerian government, because I remember I had a conversation with the Minister of Housing, and he talked about the fact that specific models that the government believes are well suited for the Nigerian populace will be built, will be produced, and there will be, of course, the issue of standardization will come in. And just like we have in the UK, specific house models will be given to specific parts of the population, perhaps from the low income down to up to the middle income classes. Do you think that your model would fit into what the government is planning in the housing sector?
I think it just looks as if we sat with the government and sat with McKinsey to create what we're creating. Really, we didn't, but it fits exactly into what government is trying to do, and we would avail the government with our scheme as soon as possible to help, at least to help broker and make it easier make it cheaper, basically, for the government to achieve its goal. We actually have our government, and most importantly, our people in mind. We're trying to give dignity back to people through housing and social schemes. So it's very important for us that the government is trying to do something new. And it's also very important for us that we're a little bit ahead of what's happening, and we can provide like a direction and a guiding light for African governments. That's very important for us, and we'll ensure that the federal government of Nigeria, at least for now, can get access to our schemes, and those schemes can help to give our people back dignity. That's very important to us.
All right, James, thank you so much for sharing that with us today. James Inedu George, Head of Design at HTL. We've got